We still have a lot more work to do, but I'm pretty happy with the direction that we're going in. Do I think we'll get it done in time? I have not a clue, but I will try my best, and that's all we can really do. Hi, and welcome back to Learning with YagmanX. Today I'll be chatting with you about what happens when things don't work out the way you've planned because you hit the dreaded burnout, and how you can recover from it. Or at least how I did. But first of all, I want to address the question of how serious is burnout really? Because the word burnout gets thrown around a lot, with varying levels of seriousness attached to it. So what even is burnout and how does it affect us? I of course want to share my experiences with burnout, but I also want to get a more varied view of what burnout is and how people experience it. So while I was researching, I came across this book that was called Sharing a House with a Never-Ending Man, 15 Years at Studio Ghibli, written by Steve Alpert. This book basically documents how Hayao Miyazaki works when creating a Studio Ghibli film. And the excerpt that I found particularly interesting for this video is, by the time Miyazaki started Part D, he would begin having doubts about whether the first 5 parts and the length assigned to the film would be enough to contain the story. He usually had no idea how the film would end. He might have competing ideas about how it would end that he couldn't resolve, or he might have no idea at all. The animators would be catching up to Part D, and the writing process would have slowed to a crawl. A sense of impending crisis would sweep into the studio. Miyazaki would stop writing and spend time doing things unrelated to his film. He chopped wood for his studio's Vermont cast iron stove. Someone would report it to Suzuki, who would go over and get him to stop chopping wood and get back to work. Part E had not appeared and the whole studio would be churned by an atmosphere of high stress. The theatres were booked, the production was behind schedule, no one knew how the film would end, and then a breakthrough. Part E appeared. Interestingly, I did a poll and I found out that most of you, like Miyazaki, believe that creative burnout is simply a part of your overall creative process. But then I started to wonder, is this behaviour actually due to burnout, or is it more akin to creative block? Like writer's block, but for something else, films, game dev, we have all experienced it. Because there is a stark difference between burnout and block, but I feel like there's often confusion around the two terms. In Miyazaki's case, it shows that he needs to take some time away from what he's working on to have his eureka moment, which absolutely makes sense because studies have shown us for a while now that our brains work best when they're in a more relaxed state. Hence why you get your best ideas in the shower, when you're having a nap or going for a walk, maybe even on the toilet. But I'd argue this is not burnout. Burnout is way more serious. So in that case, what is burnout? You see, with creative block, you still want to work, that energy and intent is there, but you simply cannot find the ideas or get into a creative flow. With burnout, however, you end up getting to a place where you physically cannot get motivated to work, even if you are overflowing with ideas or even in the middle of a project. This is absolutely not a productive or healthy way of working, and therefore it really should be taken seriously. When I first started to feel the effects of burnout, which I will share with you in a little bit, I came across this amazing video about occupational burnout in the workplace. It focuses mainly on the games industry, as that is what I'm in, but they share and explain Maslach's model of occupational burnout, which is pretty broad.
Occupational burnout is a chronic syndrome due to exposure to overwhelming long-term stress in the workplace, and it has 3 dimensions. Now, exhaustion is the one that everybody probably knows, but it's more than just being physically tired. You take a few days off and it goes away. We're talking about a kind of pervasive, bone-deep, soul-crushing cognitive and emotional weariness that paradoxically interferes with our ability to rest and recover. Now, ineffectiveness is the second dimension. And it's not just self-doubt or imposter syndrome. With burnout, our effectiveness is measurably decreased, and not once or twice. Our performance is consistently not as good over a long time. And the third dimension has different names depending on which research you might look at, cynicism or personal detachment. With that, we might see mood shifts like anger at yourself, other people around you. You might see cognitive shifts like a lack of investment. We might force ourselves to physically do the work, albeit badly, but we're mentally checked out, and again, over a long period of time. And it might extend outside of our work lives, to our family lives, and to our social lives.
Once you're done with this video, I would highly recommend that you watch that video, as I find it's really helpful to get a good overview on burnout and how it's affected people in different ways, and how different people have dealt with it and come through the other side. Because if you feel this way, then I can assure you, you are not alone. Many people experience burnout. It does not make you lazy. It does not make you incompetent. You deserve to be taken seriously, and you deserve to take your own mental health seriously as well. Okay, so simply put, burnout is a state of physical, emotional, and mental exhaustion, and it's usually caused by prolonged and excessive stress. What are the signs of burnout though? And how can you notice it before it becomes too bad? I believe that everyone's signs will slightly differ from person to person, but I'm just going to share with you what my signs were and are. First of all, I felt extremely tired all of the time, even if I had slept 8 to 10 hours. I was just super knackered. And it's probably because my constant state of mind was just overwhelmed and panicked. My self-esteem just plummeted. I didn't believe in myself. I didn't believe I was capable of doing any kind of task, whether that was for myself and my personal projects or in my work, unfortunately. Even if I was given small tasks, it would often lead to many tears and much procrastination. Just lost all self-confidence. So yeah, it affected my performance, but it also affected my enjoyment. I stopped doing things that I really enjoyed before. I stopped doing music. I stopped making YouTube videos. I stopped streaming on Twitch. I stopped doing all these things that I enjoyed and had pride in prior to becoming burnt out. I also got physical symptoms. So my neck was constantly in pain because of how tense I was. I hold my tension kind of up here when I'm stressed. My eye was twitching a lot. I got like stress twitches. And I felt like I was going to be sick. Like all the time I felt very nauseous, and I had pressure headaches. Probably because of the overthinking. Because I did suffer with negative thought cycles. A lot of negative thoughts coming through my head all of the time, telling me I couldn't do anything. And although those are the emotional and physical signs of my burnout, it's also really important to become aware of your stresses and aware of your current situation. When I took the time to stop and think about, why do I feel this way? Why am I hurting? I realized that I was dealing with a lot of stress both at home. I was going through home complications in my personal life and at work as well. So I had nowhere that I could go to kind of switch off and relax, which after a prolonged amount of time was obviously causing me to go down the road of burnout. And I didn't realize until it was too late. Okay, so now that you know my signs of burnout, maybe some of you relate. And if you do, then hopefully this next section can help you. How to get over burnout. Of course, this is just what I did to help myself, and I feel way more myself now than I did this time last year, which I'm very grateful about. Fingers crossed these steps can help someone else too. Number one is very simple, but also extremely hard to do. It's acceptance. How many times have you been asked the question, or you've asked somebody else, how is your day going? And the response is, busy. It's ingrained in our culture that staying busy and having a lot of work is the most productive and successful way of living our lives. So it's not hard to see why people struggle so much to stop working when these signs of burnout appear, even if it is in the interest of their own mental health and therefore their own productivity. And this is exactly what I did. I fought the signs until my body and my brain would not let me anymore. I stopped doing everything that I enjoyed. I couldn't even bring myself to sit at the computer or think about doing any dev work without welling up and being about to cry. Or just crying outright. Screw it, I cried a lot, okay? I cried a lot at that time. Because just the thought of doing what I used to love really just made me want to cry because I missed that feeling and I didn't feel it anymore. It was strange. As I said, I stopped uploading YouTube videos, and it was mainly because I knew that I wasn't in the right mindset to receive any sort of criticism. But of course, I learned the hard way that you cannot escape burnout. It will always catch up with you. And of course, that means it will harm your productivity in the end. And more importantly, it will harm your mental health. So please try not to blame yourself. This is not your fault. The more you fight it, the more severe the burnout will become. And eventually, I had to ask for help. Even just talking to friends and family can be really helpful. But I personally would advise you to seek out people who have also been through burnout, so they can empathize with you, as this is what you really need in this moment. I reached out to a few developers who had been vocal about their own experiences with burnout in the industry, and hearing from them really helped to validate my own feelings and therefore helped me to accept my current situation. I'm so grateful for everyone who took some time out to either offer me some advice or just lent me a friendly ear at that time, because that's honestly just what I needed. I don't think I realized how much I needed it until I got the responses from people, so thank you so much. You can also consider talking to a therapist, going to your GP, letting them know how you feel, or even talking to your workplace and seeing if they can do anything to help alleviate your workload, or even to offer you some time off for your mental health. I didn't even realize that that last option was a thing until I started to open up and talk to other people about my burnout experience. And it's actually way more common than you might think. Mental Health UK found during their burnout report in 2024 that 1 in 5 workers had to take some time out due to poor mental health in the last year. And honestly, when I found out this was an option, it was like, just a load had been lifted off me, because I thought there's no way I could ask for time off work due to mental health. I needed to have a broken leg or something, but that's not the case in a lot of scenarios, and it never hurts to ask. So I was lucky enough to get some time off work, and I'm really grateful for that as well, because it allowed me to focus on therapy. I was going to therapy at the time for my extremely low self-esteem and social anxiety. And she shared with me a CBT, which stands for Cognitive Behavioral Therapy, a CBT activity that would help me with my overwhelming negative thoughts. This activity helps you to reframe the thoughts in the moment so that you can take action and control over regaining your own confidence, and it really helped for me. I've actually turned this into a digital itch.io activity so that it could help more people possibly, because I had a paper version of it and I ran out of those papers pretty quickly. So now it's available for anyone to do as many times as you need to. It helps you to understand distorted thinking and where these negative thoughts are coming from, so that you can be kinder to yourself and reframe the thoughts in the moment that they come in. The link to it will be in the description down below, and I just hope it can help people like it has helped me. Entirely free, by the way. The next step is simply stepping away. As Miyazaki would step away to chop wood, we too need to step away from our work and our stresses. At first, this is extremely difficult for me, and I know many others as well. I'm a planner. Every Monday, I write out my goals for the week, I put it in my Google Calendar, and I live by that. So this was a challenge. At first, I pushed all of my goals back and I said, okay, I'll give myself a week to recover. Next week, I'm going to get back on it. And next week would come and I still felt awful. Next month came, I still felt awful. 2 months came, I still felt awful. You cannot give yourself a recovery time. Do not put expectations on yourself like that because it doesn't work that way. It could take weeks, months, or even years in some cases. It takes a while for you to just start enjoying life again and feeling like yourself. And if you put too much expectation on yourself and you keep pushing yourself, you could lead yourself down a path of depression. When you feel this way, it can be difficult to imagine your life getting better. But instead of trying to go back to your old self in leaps and bounds, it was way more manageable for me to instead focus on the small joys in life. Not worrying about productivity, not worrying about work or goals or anything like that, but simply enjoying things like a cat cuddle, or a new leaf on your plant, or learning to cook a new recipe, a beautiful sunrise or sunset, the moon. Trying to notice these things and find a sense of at least peace from them. We have to get in touch with the things that we would otherwise take for granted while we are overworking ourselves, and remind ourselves of what makes us happy and what is important to us besides work or productivity. The next step was also extremely hard for me, and it still is. It's intuitive check-ins. So as I said before, I'm a natural planner. It's how I live my life, how it always has been really. But what I try to do to make it work for me and not plan everything was to instead sit down in the morning and journal and ask myself, what do I want to do today? And yeah, it was difficult and weird. I'm used to being dictated by my past self about what I should be doing that day. And I'll be honest with you, when I asked myself this question, I had no prior planning involved, or the Google Calendar screaming at me saying, do this today. The answer when I asked myself, what do I want to do, was nothing. For the longest time, I wanted to do nothing. I couldn't think of anything that I wanted to do, and it was frustrating. I felt kind of like, I guess, a bit checked out of life. I focused on feeding my plants and hand making juices. I did that a lot back then. Anything that would take a long time, I did. Like hand pressing the tomatoes for tomato juice. I was into that. And slowly, I started to enjoy playing games again, just on my own, which was nice. And then I felt an urge to create again. I can't remember how long that took, maybe a month or two. But it wasn't game dev, it was songs. And singing is something that has brought me immense happiness ever since I was a child. And I realized I hadn't been singing for myself in a long time, because I only sang if I was producing a song and I was going to release that song. I was hardly ever just finding the time to sing for enjoyment. So I started to do that. I went to a vocal coach, and she was and is a wonderful teacher. She's very friendly and supportive, and that's what I needed. I needed support. And through that, finding something that made me happy, I felt the spark of self-belief start to flicker again. My next step, when you are feeling like you're starting to enjoy life again and you're finding a tiny bit of self-belief come back, is to dip your toes in and perhaps start working on a completely different project than what you were working on when you started to feel yourself going down the road of burnout. So my first creative project was to edit together a wedding video of my cousin. It was like a really small task, but for some reason the idea of getting on my PC here and editing that together just filled me with dread. I had associated being on my PC with the feelings that I had when I was at my worst point with burnout. So it was really hard for me to literally just sit there and be on the PC. But I pushed through it, and luckily this was a small task. It only took me at max 4 hours. And even though I didn't want to go on the PC at the beginning, I sat there and I told myself if I hate it, I don't have to do it. But as I started to edit, I realized that all the negative feelings kind of washed away. And then after 4 hours, I was done. I sent it off to my mum and my cousin, and they loved it. And I got a sense of accomplishment and achievement. Then I focused on making a song for my friend's film called Rocket Girl. You might have seen it on the channel. And I wanted to make a music video for it. But again, I didn't want to be sat at my PC for ages. So I decided to make handmade puppets and do stop motion animation, which is totally out of my realm. But it was fun. And I didn't care how it turned out because I just wanted to try something. It was new, it was exciting, and I felt the joy of being creative coming back. I think the main difference between where I was when I started being burnt out and where I was when I was making the Rocket Girl music video was that my negative thoughts were not nearly as loud or coming around as often. Probably because A, I went through therapy and I did that CBT activity, but B, because I was doing this project mainly for myself and for Kai, the film director, and I knew he would be more than happy with anything that I created. I was no longer worrying about other people living up to their expectations or possibly letting them down. And without that worry, I was more able to focus on the present and the simple joy of creating for creation's sake.
Hi, Editing Yasmin here. I just want to add that at this point I felt unable and incapable to do game dev, but also to talk about it, which was difficult because that is what my channel is all about. So instead, I decided to focus on other game developers. I wanted to support indie developers in specific, so I started a Twitch segment called Indie Game Appreciation, where I would play game jam games or demos or just basically small games and offer constructive feedback and support. And this really helped me to find my passion for the games industry again, because I got to play a lot of really unique and inspiring games, and also talk to a bunch of devs and hear their stories and how they'd created the games. See, this is what's so great about indie games. Even if they're like unfinished game jam games or whatever, they can start really interesting conversations and spark a lot of creativity. So this is really cool. It really helped me to just get out of my own head, stop thinking about myself. Am I good enough? Can I even do game dev anymore? Blah, blah, blah. And start focusing on other people. How can I help them? How can I support them? And by doing that, I was also able to help myself. So maybe this is also something that you can take away from my experience as well. Sometimes you just gotta help others. Get out of that head. Anything that helps with that.
So after almost a year, I'm pretty much on the other side of burnout now. I've surrounded myself with people who I trust and who I know I can be emotionally open with. So if I do have these negative thoughts running around my head, I can talk about them. Or I know that I can prove the thoughts wrong. You know, if my thoughts tell me my friends don't like me and don't want to be around me, I know I can prove them wrong. If the thoughts tell me I'm not a very good singer and I'm letting my choir down, I know I can prove them wrong just by asking the choir how I'm doing. Oh yeah, because I have joined a choir now to share my love of singing with others. I have even made new friends, which has drastically changed the way that I live my life today versus last year. And I even tried being a dungeon master with them, which was super fun. And I have finally returned to game dev work as well. I taught a technical game design course with Into Games. And I've been going to a bunch of unis and stuff and proving to myself that I can do this, that I'm not incompetent, that I am worthy, and yeah, All the things that I thought I wasn't when the burnout happened. But saying all that, even now I'm still feeling some of the effects from burnout. And I am very aware and wary of ever going back to that place where I was mentally when all of this began. So that's why the last point that I want to leave you on circles back to the very beginning, which is acceptance. It is my responsibility to realize that working myself to a level of burnout where I then cannot work for a month or more is unsustainable and it's uncaring to myself. I accept that I am human. I am not a robot, and I will work to a level of achieving without consistently expecting myself to overachieve. And I'll leave you with a quote from that wonderful video about occupational burnout that has stuck with me and maybe will help you too.
Remember this guy? Everyone knows this frame, but not everyone knows that this is actually how that comic continues. If things are on fire, then things are probably not fine. And most of the time, there actually isn't a reason to let things last that long and get that bad.
So after all of this, I wonder, do you believe that burnout is an inevitable part of your creative process? I would love to know in the comments down below. I just wonder if there's a more efficient and kind way that we can work to achieve our goals while also enjoying the process at the same time. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and subscribe to see more game dev and creative content like this. And I am so happy to let you know that I have finally found the creative spark to start working on the retro music video in Unreal Engine once more. I'm pretty happy with how it's going, so looking forward to sharing that with you. If there's any tips or advice or even burnout related experiences that you want to share with others that you think could be helpful, please do leave it in the comments below. I'd love this to be a place where we can help one another and just allow us all to feel seen, understood, validated. It's so important. And thank you so much to my Patreons for voting on this topic to be my next YouTube video. It's been a really good opportunity for me to introspect and really think about what I learned from my experience dealing with burnout. And I just hope that whoever stumbles across this video can maybe find it helpful in some way. If you want to have a say on what I create on this channel, you want to see behind the scenes footage, or you simply just want to support me, then please feel free to check out the Patreon. I really appreciate everyone who is so supportive on there. So yeah, link will be in the description down below, as well as all of the links I have mentioned in this video today. So check out the description for those, and if you want to see more of my face, then you can catch me live streaming on twitch.tv/YagmanX. That's enough of me. Thank you so much for watching this video. Please be kind to yourselves and do not forget that there is way more to life than work. Have a lovely day or evening. Bye. Oh, I hate when I do that. Oh.